Hello everyone, I'm Ms Agnes and I'm here to talk to you about personal finance. And our topic for today is, why is budgeting important? Now, for those of you who have never been on this channel, welcome. We'd love to have you. I hope you learned something. I hope you find something interesting. If you've got anything to add, please put it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And please subscribe to the channel so that you can hear and get more of the content that we're going to post as often as we can. So, why is budgeting important, and what is budgeting? Now, there's so many different definitions of budgeting, but I love what John Maxwell says about budgeting. John Maxwell says budgeting is knowing where your money goes every month rather than wondering where it went. So it's being aware of where it went rather than thinking, oh, I didn't realize that that's where my money went. So a lot of us, if you say to us, put up your hands, those of you who've got a budget, a lot of us say we've got a budget. I would have said in the past that I did have a budget, but I didn't. What I would do is the day before payday, before I'm about to sleep, I'm lying in bed and I'm thinking, right, I need to pay Joe, I need to pay Peter, I need to pay Moses, and I need to pay this. That's what I called a budget. But I never wrote anything down, right? And what happens? If Joe came before Peter and Moses and I paid for other things in between, that means the other two would suffer because I didn't have a written budget, there was no plan. So what would happen at the end of the month? I start wondering, where did my money go? So budgeting is actually having a structured plan for your money, right? It allows you to be organized. And one of the key benefits of budgeting is less stress. If you don't budget, you don't know where your money goes. When you run out of money, what happens? You get stressed. So, why is budgeting important? The first thing about budgeting, it helps you understand where your money is going. Now, I run an exercise called Know Your Numbers, and it's very interesting. A lot of us sort of have a basic awareness of where our money goes, but we don't know the detail of where our money goes. And I don't know why we don't bother to understand the detail of where our money goes. I don't know whether we think that budgeting is for poor people, or budgeting is for women, or budgeting is for people who are more organized. Budgeting is for everybody. Anybody who earns money needs to have a budget. Why? Because it allows you to plan where you're going to allocate your money, but it also allows you at the end of the month to check, where has my money gone? So when I did the Know Your Numbers exercise, I was shocked by the amount of money I was spending on airtime. And I said to myself, people don't need to talk to me that much. But until I did the Know Your Numbers exercise, I had no idea I was spending that much money on airtime. Because what I would do is, I've got a contract, so I get a little bit of airtime. I spend a lot of time in coaching and training, so I leave the house and I'm at various locations. And when I'm there, I would run out of airtime, and then I would transfer airtime to my phone and use that. And I realized that no, I need to be more conscious of how much airtime I'm using. I needed to switch off my mobile data and not use as much. But only when I did my Know Your Numbers exercise is when I realized that, oops, I'm spending too much money. So what does budgeting do? It tells you where your money is going. So it allows you to plan to see, this is where my money is going. But budgeting is also at the end of the month checking, did I actually spend this amount on what I was going to spend it on? So that's point number one. Second thing about budgeting is it allows you to manage your spending. Money is money, you know. When you've got it, you spend it. But if you spend it on things that you really don't want to spend it on, what happens? You end up with less money at the end of the month, and maybe you'll have more month than money. And what happens in those instances? For a lot of us, I still need to survive. So I need fuel money to go to work, I need food money, and I need maybe just to survive. So what happens? I go and borrow money, and what does that do? It busts my budget for the next month. But if I do have a budget and I realize that, I might have a bit of a deficit this month, what can I cut money out of? So I've got the foresight to plan, to figure out what can I do less of. So I am a bread person. I love to eat bread. And my favorite is bread with jam and cheese, right? So in the months that I realize that things are a bit tight this month, maybe I'll buy bread and I'll buy jam, but I won't buy the cheese. So maybe instead of cheese, I'll buy peanut butter, which is slightly cheaper. So I'll still get to eat my bread, but I'm cognizant of my finances and I'm planning accordingly. So that's what budgeting allows you to do. It allows you to figure out, okay, this month things might be a bit tight. Maybe I might not need to spend on A, and maybe I need to make a different choice to allow me to survive the month. It's not forever. But what does it do? It allows you to be aware so that you can plan accordingly. Say you're planning to go on holiday. At the end of the year, you'd like to go, and maybe not the end of this year because this year has been a torrid year, maybe end of 2021, your family and you want to go on holiday. You look at your finances and you realize that maybe I want to go to Mauritius. Mauritius is, say, 30,000 Rand per person. And I think, if I'm going to go to Mauritius in maybe 10 months from now, it means that I need to save 3,000 Rand a month. So what do? I go to my budget and I check through my budget. Do I have 3,000 Rand at the end of each month to put away for my holiday? If I don't, that means I need to make different choices. So maybe I eat takeout once a week. Maybe because I'm saving for my Mauritius holiday, I decide, is it going to be takeout or is it going to be my holiday to Mauritius? And if my holiday to Mauritius is important, what does it mean? It means I put away takeout, I stand on the stove and I cook, and I take that money and put it into my Mauritius fund. But if I don't have a budget, I don't know, or I am not aware of whether I actually do have enough money for my Mauritius fund or not. So budgeting is important because 1, it allows you to understand where your money is going. 2, it allows you to manage your spending. Point number 3, it formalizes your commitment to paying debt. If you don't write stuff down, a lot of times it doesn't get done. So what do? We prioritize our spending at the end of the month depending on what's important to us. And a lot of times debt is not very important to us. Maybe your mortgage bond is important, but a lot of times we sort of like, my child's school fees might come top of the list. For me, I'm a Christian, so tithing is important, so that's the first thing on my list and everything else comes second. So we always put what's important to us at the top of the list. And then what happens? Sometimes debt might be at the bottom of the list, and if you have an emergency, all the money might go, and because I haven't planned for it, what happens? I end up not being able to pay my debt, get myself into trouble, I accumulate interest, and there's a whole bunch of nasty consequences that come with that, and the debt, instead of being a 1-year debt, might end up being an 18-month debt. So those are the things that one needs to think about. If you have a budget, you actually formalize your commitment to say, right, this month I will make sure that I've got enough money to pay for this debt, because it's written down, you've committed it, you've written it down on your list, and you're going to make sure you do it. And the next thing it does is prioritizes spending. What's important, what's not so important. And you make sure that you actually plan for your priorities. A lot of times we sort of like, maybe at the beginning of the month I say I'm going to pay Joe, Peter, Moses, and Andrew, maybe. I don't know, whoever. And what happens is maybe Moses comes first, so I pay Moses first, and then my priorities are out of work, and maybe I don't have enough money to pay Joe at the end of the month. And what does it do? It messes up my numbers. So when you need to prioritize your spending, I need to pay for this, I need to pay for that, write it down, commit it to a budget. Honestly, for me, the biggest benefit of a budget is less stress. When you're organized, you're less stressed. And there is nothing more stressful than money that can cause more personal, emotional, and physical stress than money, poor money management. So if you can be proactive about your money management, if you're proactive, you reduce or eliminate a lot of the stress that's caused by spending. Another thing that budgeting does, it allows you to identify bad money habits. So, say you've got a coffee habit and you spend, say, 25 Rand a day, which sounds like, it's not too much. 25 Rand a day on a cup of coffee. Fine, you put it into your budget. You know that you spend 500 Rand a day on your coffee habit. You can't live without your coffee. You get the shakes if you don't. Good for you. However, maybe when you go and buy that coffee, you get a muffin, or you get a cookie, or you get chips, or you get something else. So your coffee habit is allowing you, or is exposing you to spending extra money on stuff that you wouldn't have planned to spend. But because you're there, you start to spend that money. So you go, you spend on your coffee, then you buy something else. You go, you spend on your coffee, and you buy food or drink or chocolate. And now, when you put it into your budget, then it allows you to say, right, I've budgeted for my coffee habit, but all these extras I haven't budgeted for. So you have a consciousness of it, then you realize that, if I'm going to stick to my budget at the end of the month, I need to eliminate these bad habits. And you need to take them out and plan for, make sure that you're not hungry when you're going to buy your coffee by bringing yourself food or making sandwiches at home, or just planning better around that bad habit. But you understand the bad habits by actually committing it to a budget. And another thing that it does, and this is the final thing, it allows you to save for the future. Now, if I look at the year 2020, good heavens, it's been a crazy year. A lot of people have lost their jobs, a lot of people have been put on half salary in order to keep their jobs, but it's things that were totally unexpected. For 3 months, a lot of people didn't earn a cent in a living. Now, imagine, in January, we had no idea that this coronavirus was going to affect the world the way it did. We had no idea it was going to affect the economy the way it did. However, if you had been saving and putting money aside, and you had a little bit of an emergency fund saved away, what happens? When you have these 3 crazy months where your income goes, haywire, and you're not earning as much as you are, but also in addition to that, what happens? You also have family members and friends and colleagues or people who you know who have got no income, who you would like to assist. What happens? If you've got an emergency fund, you've got a little bit of money saved away, and maybe you can lend a helping hand. If you've not, you will find it difficult for yourself to make ends meet, because this has been a torrid time for all of us. So if you have money saved away, it makes a big difference. And for me, that was one of the biggest lessons of this coronavirus, is if I had a budget and I had put money away and I had started and created a formal saving structure, this would have allowed me to spend my emergency fund. And if I spend my emergency fund, that means that now I start to rebuild my emergency fund, which is what I'm doing now. So when you've got a budget, you can put away that amount. And a lot of people talk about paying yourself, and they think paying yourself means money for me to go and have fun. No, paying yourself means putting money into the future. I always say 2 things: saving versus debt. Saving is putting money into your future. Debt is stealing money from your future. Because remember, you take debt, you have to pay for it in the future. Whereas if you're saving, you're putting money into your future. So if anything unexpected were to happen, you actually will have a bit of financial muscle. And for those of you who like having fun and you think, no, this budgeting thing is too much trouble, I need a bit of fun money, you can put fun money into your budget.